About 20 years ago, there was a best-selling book written by an American economist called Jeremy Rifkin, and the name of the book was The End of Work. And the argument of the book is that computers and robots are beginning to already and eventually will continue to do so at an even greater rate, replace the jobs that many of us do. Once upon a time, most of us in society worked on farms, and then technology improved and fewer people were needed to work on farms, to the point where nowadays hardly anyone works on farms. Once upon a time, most people worked in factories and manufacturing. And manufacturing has become more automated. Fewer and fewer people work in factories. Once upon a time, if you went into the bank, you would always go to the teller. Now there are fewer and fewer people working at the bank, and more of us go to the computer to do our banking. Once upon a time, you'd go to the grocery store, and you'd have to go to check out with the cashier, and now you can check out all by yourself. And in Rifkin, in his book, he said this is coming. Work as we know it is coming to an end for many people. Who knows? Maybe someday there will be robots replacing ministers. In the language of the Scriptures, we might say that in the end of work, he says, the workers are plentiful, but the jobs are getting fewer and fewer. Frank read just a moment ago for us from the Gospel of Matthew, where Jesus said, the fields are white for the harvest. The harvest is plentiful, but the workers are few. It's the opposite. Jesus sent his disciples out on a mission. He sent them far and wide to go to the lost sheep of the people of Israel and tell them the good news of God's coming kingdom. But not only is God's kingdom of love and righteousness and justice and mercy coming, but it is already here. He said, go and tell. Some will receive your message, some will not. But you go and tell. For indeed the fields are white for the harvest. The harvest will be plentiful. Oh, but the laborers are few. So what few laborers there are, you go and work and labor and reap the harvest. The text is a reminder for followers of Jesus in every generation that we too are on a mission, not only to spread the kingdom of God in our actions and in our love, but to spread it with our words, to articulate what it is we're doing as followers of Jesus, so that others might hear and know that same good news. We too are to go and to tell. Now we know, of course, that some will not hear, will not receive the message, but others will. Many will. The harvest is plentiful. If Jeremy Rifkin's book was written about 20 years ago. About 10 years ago, I read a newspaper article which looked back on the book and said, where are we? Have the jobs truly disappeared? What is the status of his prediction? Well, it said that this has partly happened. Not fully. Many people still have their jobs, but the jobs are fewer and fewer. And for this article, Rifkin himself was interviewed. And he reminded readers of that article that we might, as a society, envision ourselves in a different way. We might imagine our work in a different way. We might share our work more equitably. We might find ways to value the other things that we do with our time. You have to forgive me. Whenever it's a hot day and I get sweaty, the microphone slips off my ear. I'm going to go to the lectern, Peter. It's been a long time since I've spoken behind one of these. Rifkin suggested that we can share our work and that we can find ways to value things that we do together and for one another that are not classically paid. And he said something most interesting. He said that in America, and he's an American, that his book, his analysis, his vision were seen as quite depressing. Whereas in France, his book, his vision was seen as very hopeful. I think it's interesting that these two quite different perspectives could be offered on the situation of our economy and of jobs. As Christians, our situation is the opposite. It's not that the work is plentiful and that the workers are few. How does that strike us? Is it hopeful or depressing? I think it says something about our faith, how we would answer that question. If we believe that God is alive and at work in our midst, God is doing things for us and through us, then the news of the great work that is before us, the harvest that is available, it ought to be a hopeful word. Hewitt mentioned at the announcement time that next Sunday afternoon at 2 o'clock is the final service, the closing service of one of our neighboring sister churches, Central United. And over the last few weeks and months, I have heard so many people, both in our church and around our city, express great love and concern for the people of Central United. Where will they worship, we wonder? Where will they find Christian community? The chair of your official board and secretary and Hewitt and I have sent a letter on behalf of our congregation to the people of Central United, wanting them to know that our prayers are with them and that our love is for them, and that we wish them all the best, that they are welcome here, and we hope that they might find family here, but that wherever they go, they they will find a meaningful place to worship God, and they will find a Christian community. It's quite right, I think, for the leadership of this church and for all of us here and for people around our city to be moved with love and compassion for the people of Central United Church. Imagine how we would be as followers of Jesus and as church together if we could be so moved with prayer and love and compassion for all the people of our city, that the lost sheep might hear the good news of God's coming kingdom, that they would find a place to worship God, that they would find a home for a loving community. We may feel that the laborers are few, but the harvest is plentiful. Economist Jerry Rifkin envisioned a new dawn for our society. He said something like this: imagine what we can accomplish together now that we do not need to work so hard and for so many hours tilling the fields or down in the mines. We have time and energy to do the things we might dream and imagine together. He offered a vision of hope. Some of us still have to work pretty hard. But even for those of us who still work hard to make a living, we probably don't have to work quite as hard as our parents and grandparents and great-grandparents. We have time and energy and possibilities that previous generations could scarcely imagine. And we can find new and exciting ways to live our lives. And as followers of Jesus, we have time and energy to do his work and bring in his plentiful harvest. Thanks be to God.